Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the view from the opposition. This week it comes from Sam from the Back of the Net podcast covering Bournemouth. Of course, the visitors to St James's Park on Saturday for the early kickoff. Sam, I don't know how to describe your first appearance on this podcast because it left me very, very excited that we'd signed a future England international in Lloyd Kelly. Quite hasn't gone to plan, but you were the reason that I thought it was going to be a brilliant signing and told everyone so. But I'm not going to hold it against you. Welcome back. Are you well?
Thank you very much. Yeah, doing well. Happy to be in the top half of the Premier League and looking forward to a trip to the Northeast on Saturday. Whether it will bear its fruit, I don't know because we are depleted. But we always look forward to the weekend anyway.
So are you making the long journey up?
Yeah, I will be. I'm actually flying to Edinburgh on the Friday night from Bournemouth and then getting the train down first thing Saturday. So it's a different way to go about it, but it's probably saves me the most time and it's actually relatively cheap as well. So yeah, I am making the trip.
Yeah, you don't want to be driving all that way and then have to climb all those stairs to level 7. So probably doing it your way is a little bit easier on the legs. I'm really excited about this game. I think if you're a neutral, I think it's one that's going to really capture the imagination. You've mentioned it there, though. Bournemouth are having to deal with a bit of an injury crisis. We suffered something similar this time kind of last year. We've maybe seen Spurs go through something similar in recent months, but Bournemouth seem to be the team now which have just been wiped out by injuries.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest credit I can pay to Andoni Iraola is that not many people are mentioning it. We're on some of the best form that we've ever been on. We're 9 unbeaten in all competitions, and I think 10 actually, 9 in the Premier League. And no one's really mentioning it. When we played Chelsea last, we had a team of kids on the bench, as well as Justin Kluivert, of course, who made the difference. But even then, we were forced into an early substitution to bring him on earlier than planned because another one of our players managed to pick up an injury. So yeah, we are pretty depleted, but we're in a good place under Andoni Iraola, and he's just been a really good manager that manages to get the best out of each and every player we've got. But you know that well with Eddie Howe as well. So it is going to be an interesting match because Newcastle, of course, their unbeaten run is superb, and so is AFC Bournemouth. But one of them's got to end, or maybe it'll carry on with a draw. Who knows?
Well, I know. I mean, obviously, you never turn down a point. I want all three because I want Newcastle United to continue winning because the form they're on is unbelievable. And Alexander Isak as well, scoring for fun. So more history could be made on Saturday. But just reading the absentees from your squad is unbelievable. You know, Adam Smith, Alex Scott, Marcus Tavernier, Sonny Estra. Yeah, Even Nilsson and Unal, just to name a few, and then obviously another injury picked up midweek as well. It's just it's just a scary list because some really talented players will be missing on Saturday.
Absolutely, and it's not just fringe players. We're talking about players that are playing for the first team here, and even Alex Scott that is in that list. He's probably had the minimal appearances, but he's an integral part of the team, and he will usually play and usually get minutes every single game that we play. So, yeah, we're really struggling. The main thing for us is losing our main man Evan Nilsson. So he's been the replacement for Dom Solanke. He's not maybe produced in terms of the numbers. I think if you asked a lot of Bournemouth fans at the start of the season, how many goals would you want him to have by now? We might be underwhelmed with 5, but we've learned that his overall involvement and his contributions, apart from that, his assists stats are great alone, and the way he plays is integral to who we are. So his miss, whilst the numbers might not be affected, you'd think it's huge for us. So we think, okay, let's use our backup striker, and then he gets an ACL in training just 24 hours later. So that means we're recalling Daniel Jefferson from Sheffield United, who their fans aren't exactly very complimentary of. He went out on loan to Watford earlier this season. Their fans didn't particularly like him, so we're trying to mould him into a player that can do a job for us. So yeah, we're in a really tricky position. The only sort of saving grace for us is that in terms of the goals, we spread them around the team quite a bit. And so we're not naturally relying on players like that for the numbers. And we have still got some threats here. So it's not a dead rubber of a game in terms of us jacking it in and just thinking Newcastle are going to get 3 points. We could have done that against Chelsea in the week. We didn't. So yeah, we will still be competitive and still give you a game, we hope.
Yeah, well, you've certainly got some talented players still available. You mentioned Cliver coming off the bench. I'm a big fan of him, but Semenyo for me is the one that I would love to see him in black and white. And I hate it when I say that to other fans because I don't like it when other fans say the same thing to me about Alexander Isak or Bruno Guimaraes. I think it's a little bit arrogant, but I'm just being honest. I think he's a fantastic player, and I would love to see him at Newcastle United. How do Newcastle go about keeping him quiet on Saturday?
It's a difficult one, really, for Eddie to work out because, firstly, it's unknown whether he'll start on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. He might be forced into doing a job up top, but I doubt it because his strengths really are when he's out wide. And then whichever flank he is playing on, you don't know whether he's going to cut in on his left or go out on his right. He can hit the ball with his right foot, left foot. He scored a goal against West Brom the week, a powerhouse of the shot in the cup with his right foot. And then he does the same almost from a different angle against Chelsea to put us 2-1 up. So he's a handful. He's strong. He's really athletic. He's the profile of an Andoni Iraola footballer. Really, really fast, quick. He's unpredictable as well. But it's just his directness and tenaciousness that we really like. And he's got an eye for goal as well. So he's one that we're not surprised that is attracting potential suitors for next season. We always knew with the way we're playing, the fact we're kind of maybe batting above a level that we would usually be at in terms of a mid-table team, we're going to get more eyes on our players, and that's understandable. So that means the sort of conveyor belt of players that are coming in and going out, it's moving quicker than ever before. So we know that we've only probably got them for a couple of seasons. This season might be his last, but yeah, Newcastle. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that their sort of names being mentioned. I think cash might be an issue. I don't know, but I don't think we'll be seeing him in a red and black shirt next season. But he's a talent for sure.
I mean, you see that, and obviously that is one of those fears that you start to lose your best players. But if you look at where Bournemouth are in the league, if they beat Newcastle United on Saturday, they'd be just a point behind them. And some people are talking about Newcastle United potentially being in the title race. So it's still very, very close in the terms of the battle for maybe the top five and the top five. Are you surprised somewhat at just how well Bournemouth are doing this season?
In a way I am, and in a way I'm not, which is a really difficult thing to sort of comprehend, really. I mean, based on our performances, absolutely not whatsoever. But as a fan who's been a supporter for over 35 years, and most of it has been spent in the lower leagues, it's very difficult to comprehend a side that could be pushing for Europe. But I've got to accept that's where we are now, because the investment that we've got with our relatively new owner, Bill Foley, he's always had the mission to do that. He said outlandish statements at the time like Europe within 5 years, and a lot of Cherries fans are sort of rolling their eyes at a new American owner coming into a club and making all these predictions. But you know what? He's putting his money where his mouth is. And with Andoni Iraola, we've got a coach that I think could make that happen. So it's a strange position to be in, but I mean, we would love to be, first and foremost, we need to be like 17th and above. We'll be fine. I don't think if we lost every game this season, we'd still be all right with the points tally that we got. Then you're looking at mid-table. Is that okay? I think we're going to surpass that. Top 10, I think, realistically, I would be happy with, but any kind of European football would be absolutely incredible, not least with the last month that we've had in terms of our injuries as well. So it would be astounding for us.
I guess it's one of those. The better you do this season, that's how you get into Europe. It's maybe a bit of a double-edged sword, because then people start looking at the manager and think, could he go to a so-called bigger side, and start looking at the talented players who have maybe got you into you for next season, and start trying to cherry pick them. It's a weird one, isn't it? When you start to build that momentum and start to be a successful club, you then have the threat of losing tools that actually got you to the position of success.
Absolutely, and that's the that's the real position that we are in. I think our blueprint is very similar to what Brighton's is. Try to attract players that obviously want to make themselves known in the Premier League. I think under Eddie, we often fished for talent in the Championship, and we didn't usually go abroad for players. But we've got a new director of football, a different recruitment team that look further afield, so we can uncover stars like our centre back Ilya Zabani, young star, his co-central defender Dean Howson, who's been superb for us, popping up with a few goals, and also Milos Kerkez as well, our left back that's been getting recently a fair bit of attention. I think we signed him for about 15 million, but 2 seasons later we could probably get about 40 for him. So that is really what's happening with us these days. I don't think players are signing. I mean, players don't anyway. They never sign for a club, especially our size, with the intention of staying there forever. And we know that we're a stepping stone. But as long as we can make as much money as we can out of them and get the best possible format of them for the time that they're on the pitch, then happy days. It's just then up to our recruitment team the pressure's really on them, because like I say, that conveyor belt's moving faster. They need to attract players and target players that can hit the ground running and then make money on them in 2 years. So it's a tough job. It's a fast moving job. But if we keep Iraola for another season, I would be absolutely delighted, because the vultures will start circling, and that's just the sad reality of the size of club that we are.
I just love the fact that he went on a horrendous run of form, didn't he, when he first took over? And most owners or chairmen would have sacked their manager with the form he was finding himself in, but they backed him. And look at what you guys are doing now. It's really kind of a lesson to be learned, maybe for other clubs. Just in terms of Tyler Adams, I know he's been injured, and viewers and listeners of this podcast know that he was my pick for Newcastle United before he ended up going to Bournemouth. I've been seeing some praise for him against Chelsea. Is that right?
Yeah, he's been good for us when he's been available. His availability's not been that great, but he's come back from injury, and he's now starting to hit the ground running. He's captain for the US men's national team, and for us, he's so composed on the ball. And one of the greatest compliments I could probably pay to him is that quite often you go through a game and you don't really realise he's there. Not in a bad way that he's gone missing, but just everything he does very simply. But he just mops up, he distributes the ball well. He's a tough tackler. He's box to box. He'll move around the pitch effortlessly, and I just think he's one of the players that we've been missing ever since the departure of sort of Jefferson Lerma a few seasons ago, where he went to Crystal Palace a couple of seasons ago now. That's the kind of player that we've been missing, and him being in the side, he acts as an anchor, so that then frees other players like Ryan Christie and Lewis Cook to have a bit more freedom. So he's been really good for us so far, and this is the relative infancy of his AFC Bournemouth career, really, in terms of the games that he's played. So we're really excited to see him moving forward in the red and black shirt, because he's been great for us.
I mean, the midfield will probably be the key battle on Saturday. Newcastle's midfield are in fantastic form. Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali and Joe Linton. Tonali's just been unbelievable and just seems to get better with every single game. And in turn, he's helped Bruno become, I think, the £100 million player we all knew he could be. And Joe Linton's just, the tank that just runs over everybody. What will Bournemouth's approach be in terms of this midfield battle, assuming that Tyler Adams is probably going to start, as you say, as the anchor man, Lewis Cook as well? So have Bournemouth got enough to try and stop Newcastle's midfield?
I've got to say, it all depends on the fitness of a right back, which is bizarre, because James Hill is our right back. He's a French player, but he's had to go in there since Max Aarons is left on loan. Adam Smith, he's got a long-term injury. Julian Araujo, our Mexican star, has left as well. Sorry, not left. He's like, it feels like he has, but he's been on the treatment table for quite some time. So James Hill, who got injured, what do we do? Andoni Iraola will put our centre midfielder Lewis Cook there. He's done such a good job for us at right back. He's proving to be like such a good utility player. So he may not even be involved in that midfield three. But either way, whoever does deputise in the Midlands, in the middle of the park, it will probably be 4-2-3-1 with Adams and Christie as that too, and then the number 10 Cliver will be expected to come back and help out. But I sense it's going to be really difficult for us. I mean, Tonali just floats across the pitch. He glides across the pitch, and the quality on the ball that he has been superb. Like you said, I think he's unlocked Bruno a little bit, and with Joe Linton, who's just a beast, a powerhouse. And what Eddie's done to him, by the way, has been absolutely superb. It's going to be one where we're going to need to work so hard. But the thing that I can say about Iraola ball is that we don't like to have the football. we're happy for the opposition to have it, because our strength is maybe counter-attacking. So against Chelsea in our recent Premier League game, they had the bulk of the possession in the second half, where we won the second half 2-1, and we were much better. We created a lot more shots than we did in a first half where the possession was fairly equal. So we'll be happy for you to have the ball, I think, and I think we trust our defence as well. We'll probably have Ilya Zabani and Dean Howson at the back, who've been absolutely superb for us. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because we often feel our way into games. We sort of work it out for the first 20, 25 minutes, and then we decide, look, our plan of action, like, so to speak. But I think we are going to find it very, very difficult, against some 3 world-class players.
And as Newcastle are likely to have the majority of the ball on Saturday, what do Bournemouth do? Do they just sit back and invite them on, or do they try and press the opposition?
It's a mixture of both, really, but I think a lot of pundits have been sort of focusing on the AFC Bournemouth press. It wasn't so prevalent in the first half of our last game, but when it really works is when it all comes together like it did in the second half against Chelsea. So yeah, we do press. So the effort has to be there throughout the whole entire game. So you'll see the likes of David Brooks, Justin Cliver, Antoine Semenyo not letting the likes of whoever it's going to be, Botman, Burn, Hall, or whatever, they won't give them much time at all, to breathe. And that's where we've got most of our luck. I think in the Premier League, there's a stat on presses that then turn into shots on goal, and we are right up there. So we tend to be fairly successful with it, but it's a case of picking and choosing your moments within the game. So and Andoni Iraola seems to be really astute at that. So yeah, that's probably going to be the way it's going to be. But we are aware that there could be some periods of total Newcastle dominance, and I don't think it would be. I certainly don't think it'll be plain sailing in terms of everything going for us, in terms of us trying to put our style on Newcastle. I do feel as though there is going to be times where we are going to be backs to the wall, so we've got to be really good defensively.
Every time Newcastle United, especially in recent games, have had to have more of the ball, they are looking better each and every game with it. Early in the season, they just didn't look comfortable when they had to have the majority of possession. But it was really interesting against Wolves on Wednesday night. Wolves sat off, but didn't press Newcastle. I always think in these sort of games that if you're going to allow Newcastle to have the ball, the one thing you need to do is try to press Dan Burn. He's been absolutely brilliant. But if you can get into him when he's got the ball, I don't think he's the quickest with the ball. His feet, he's not like a kind of a real ball playing centre back who can one touch and then then distribute it. He likes to take a bit more time perhaps, and Wolves just didn't do that, and it really played in Newcastle's hands, because then it gave Dan Burn the time to be a bit more relaxed and to pick his pass. So it's going to be interesting to see if Bournemouth actually step it up, and if they do get in the face of the defenders, it really could be the right way to go about things, because when that happens, Newcastle, they're not too comfortable at it, and they're just feeling their way into being the team that are having to be more dominant, because I would still say that they're still best on the counter-attack with the speed of Gordon or Murphy down the flanks, and of course Isak. But if you're going to be a top 4 side, or shall I say it, a Premier League challenging side, as Alan Shearer hinted that they might be, you're going to have to start dominating games and being comfortable with possession. So Wednesday was a good start. It'll be interesting to see how they do on Saturday. Who are you particularly fearing in black and white? I can probably guess the name, but I'll let you say it.
All right. Well, I'll say Isak, of course. I mean, he's world class this season. You've seen exactly what he's all about. It's brilliant to see, really. I mean, a lot of Bournemouth fans are fond of Newcastle because of the numerous links that we've got there. But of course, he's an absolute danger man as well. But also Anthony Gordon as well. Down that flank, he's superb as well, and his quick running and direct running will be scary for us, but you can't not look at the main man. But there are stars like littered all over the pitch, so we're gonna have to be really, really alert during this game. Tonali, like we said, he's so gracious on the ball, but just always does the right thing. And Bruno Guimaraes is such a nuisance, and as I mentioned, Joel Linton just a powerhouse, strong on the ball. So we're gonna have to be physically strong as well. I think this time Eddie's got all of the ingredients with the players that he's got available. And as you just mentioned then, I mean, one of his frailties as a Bournemouth manager, I think in the early part of his Newcastle tenure as well was having a plan B in terms of how to break down teams with a low block. But I think he's learned along the way. And like you said in that performance against Wolves, which I watched a fair bit of, he's finding ways now. And he's not only getting the best from his players, but, like as a unit, no matter whoever you play, whether you're playing a team that's, quick on the break, or you're playing a team that will, archetypal park the bus side, he's finding ways. So this is why I just think it's going to be so difficult, because he now seems to have answers for most of the questions that are put upon him.
And there's been a lot of bad records that have been thrown in the bin this season. Newcastle going down to Old Trafford, where they'd only won twice in the league in 50 odd years. That's gone. The Emirates in the League Cup, they hadn't won there since 2010-11, and before that 2001, that went in the bin. And of course Eddie Howe has a horrendous record against Bournemouth as Newcastle United manager, but I'm feeling confident that record can also go in the bin, and it would be his first win, if I'm not mistaken, against Bournemouth as Newcastle manager, right?
He did win in the League Cup thanks to an Adam Smith own goal, but in the Premier League, you're right, hasn't managed to get a win. I mean, one of the stats that is a stupid stats, but stats that make us concerned, is that Newcastle are unbeaten in their last 6 Premier League games, kicking off at 12:30 on a Saturday. And our record isn't particularly great at that time of day. So we've lost 8 of our last 11 Premier League games kicking off at that time. So 4 of those being away from home. So yeah, it's a lot of fans will be tired and bleary-eyed. I just hope that the team won't be, but I'm sure they'll be travelling up on the Friday and staying in luxury that night.
It's a case, obviously, because you mentioned the injuries. Is it one of those where you look at it and you think Bournemouth really have to make their mark within the first hour, because there isn't really anyone to bring off the bench and change the game if needed?
It's a strange one, because in terms of the stats this season, we're up there for late goals. We're also top of the Premier League charts for having players that make a difference in terms of scoring goals, either scoring or making assists from being off the bench. Justin Kluivert was another one of the examples on the game against Chelsea, like I said, albeit he got bought on earlier than he would have wanted to be because of the injury. But one of the things with Iraola is that he rarely starts with his best 11. He prefers to finish. So one of the things that we sort of thought was a bit strange was that Justin Kluivert was on the bench, but we've just got to get used to the Iraola mindset. So I've got a feeling that he'll keep a player that's got some kind of impact on the bench on Saturday, and that'll possibly be Dango Ouattara, who's been playing up front for us recently, but he's a really pacey and athletic left-sided winger for us, and that means that the underused, untested Daniel Jefferson will possibly start up front. You'd rather have Dango there, but later on in the game, when legs are starting to tire, he can hopefully bring Dango on, and then he can make a difference. So he'll probably leave one impact sub on the bench. So it means that we won't be starting strong, like, so to speak. So that's what I mean. We're gonna maybe have to feel our way into the game a little bit more.
Okay, whether Newcastle United win, they'll set a new club record for consecutive wins. 6 consecutive wins in the Premier League. It is 9 in all competitions, which is equal in a club record. But they will be going for that number 10 on Saturday. And Alexander Isak is now just 2 goals off becoming Newcastle's second time record goal scorer. Let's try that again. The second highest record goal scorer in the Premier League for Newcastle United. If he grabs 2 on Saturday, and obviously he's just scored in his 8th consecutive game. So fingers crossed he can make it 9. I'm going to ask for your score prediction first, Sam, and then I want to bring up Lloyd Kelly and just talk about him, because it hasn't quite gone to plan. But give me your score prediction first before we talk about Lloyd.
If I'm going to be brutally honest, I would love to see this run continuing for us. I really would, but at some point it's got to change. Same goes for you, of course. I'm erring between a draw or a tight Newcastle win. I think this time, just because the feel-good factor around St James's, I think Newcastle will probably shade it. So I'm going for a 2-1.
2-1. Yeah, I think it'll be close. I mean, I'll take 2-1. I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game. I do think Newcastle United will win and continue this great run. So fingers crossed those predictions ring true. Lloyd Kelly then, because when I spoke to you in the summer, I was already like excited. But I spoke to you and I thought, goodness me, they've done a bit of business here now. I went around telling everybody. The guy from Bournemouth says he's going to be a future England international. And I'm not blaming you because it's just, things have gone against him, an injury, great form of Dan Burn and Lewis Hall. What do you think has gone wrong?
I think the problem is with Kelly is that he's got all of the attributes, like physically, to be an elite player or at least to be contesting. But I think the difference between the top players and those below them is that the top players have got the consistency to deliver those kind of performances like 9 times out of 10, whereas with Lloyd it's 5 out of 6, and you never know which you're going to get. Sadly, I think for Newcastle, I think the expectation level is higher than what it was at Bournemouth. So maybe with my cherry tinted spectacles on at the moment, I mean, one of the things that, to his credit, when all this kind of speculation about a club coming in for him and he was still playing for us, he never downed tools and he put in some really good performances where he was tested every week. Whereas at Newcastle, I mean, of course you're being, tested, by the teams you play, but your strength is in your midfield and up front. So defenders don't have to do as much. Now, I'm not trying to give him a green card here, but I don't know. I just think that he's a player that could do something, but obviously for whatever reason isn't doing it right now for you. I know previously he's sort of had like his mental demons and stuff, which hasn't been great for him. And there have been times, even at AFC Bournemouth, where he got a lot of flack. But one thing I can say to his credit is that he came back fighting. And a lot of Bournemouth players will be giving him a huge ovation when they see him on Saturday, because he was a player that was much loved. It's disappointing, really, for us that he's not really doing it. But when you've got stars like you have, it's going to be very difficult to forge his way into contention. And then when you do get the minutes, I suppose there's going to be more pressure in your head to do the right thing. And when one thing goes wrong, you're going to be overthinking about it. And when you've got limited minutes, you sort of, you're under pressure to impress. And sadly for him, it's not quite worked. I'd love him to have a run of games just to maybe show Newcastle fans, just give him a glimpse of what he can be about. But at the moment, he doesn't seem to get that. So if you can make money on him, which of course you would be, I know that other clubs like Fenerbahce have been interested. I could see why they would be, thinking about releasing him.
Yeah, one to watch there, but hopefully he can find his feet at Newcastle United, because I still think he's got a lot to offer. Now, Sam, thank you very much for providing the insight into Bournemouth. Safe journey up to Tyneside for the game on Saturday. To you guys watching, thank you as always. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the link in the podcast description box for your discounted offer on your NORD VPN plan, and head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news, including Eddie Howe's press conference on Friday morning and our dedicated Matchday live blog on Saturday afternoon. And for myself, I will see you for the Monday show next week.